Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Friday, April 8th. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of the Times. Joined with me today is Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of the Times, and Times columnist Marc Kiesling. A particularly interesting edition of the Roundtable we have today. We're going to talk about the news of the day, which is Gary Mayor Rudy Clay's announcement that he would not be seeking re-election to the post of mayor after a diagnosis of prostate cancer. Gentlemen, your reactions to this news?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that knows Rudy that he has not been himself probably the last 6 months to 8 months. So there's a lot of speculation as to his health and how it would affect his campaign. I don't think anybody foresaw him dropping out, though.
No, I certainly didn't. He was just in here, I guess it was last week, now that I think about it, a little over a week ago, and he didn't look good then. But, you know, that happens from time to time.
Well, you know, Rudy's always one of those people who's amazed me. I've always, he always looks much younger than he is. Rudy's in his mid-70s.
75.
And that would be mid-70s.
Yeah.
And I mean, I tell you, he looks 20 years younger.
Yeah.
Right.
But he has not been looking himself lately. And but I was surprised that given the diagnosis of prostate cancer, that he would drop out, because we've got a couple of prominent politicians. George Van Til is one, it's no secret. George has had prostate cancer for probably 10 years. It's never stopped him from seeking office. He's he's undergone therapy. He and I have talked about it at length, about the process, and Bob Pastrick. And my goodness, Bob Pastrick's older than Rudy Clay. Has undergone treatment for prostate cancer, and does it slow him down? It may slow him down a little, but I mean, I'm telling you, I talked to Bob Pastrick maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and he sounded like $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, and we should say that each case is different, too.
Sure.
True.
Sure.
That's why it came as a surprise. I mean, you hear the diagnosis of prostate cancer. Most men, if they live to be, I don't want to depress anyone here, but most men, if they live to be old enough, will end up with prostate cancer, and it's a slow-growing.
Well, there's a cheery thought.
I know, but it's a slow-growing and easily treatable. If you're going to get some kind of cancer, that's probably the kind you would prefer.
Actually,
yeah.
When you talk about slow-growing and easily treatable, that, probably leads us to talk about the condition that the city is in today. Because this is a city
slow
that
growing, I think, is fair. Easily treatable is probably not.
During Rudy's tenure as, we'll want to talk about his time as commissioner, county commissioner, but during his time as mayor, I mean, he has inherited a city that had been battered so long, and under so many other mayors, that he inherited a city that he took to the Distressed Unit Appeals Board that was created, almost entirely tailored for Gary's situation.
Well, you look at the city of Gary, and it is unique within the state of Indiana in its in its inability to function on its own. There was the time when Governor Evan Bayh at the time, had to call in the National Guard to supplant the police because the crime rate was so bad. I mean, it's a city that has in the past proven not to be able to completely take care of itself.
Right. Well, looking forward, we're going to have a new mayor next year.
Right.
Next year. Mayor Clay did not take questions today and did not answer as to whether he would be endorsing a candidate, although there were hints that perhaps Saturday they might be endorsing one of the candidates. Any thoughts on that and the implications for the current mayoral race?
Well, it's a pretty crowded race. There's, 11, 12. There's been a little fluctuation. I haven't kept track of the current number, but it's a pretty crowded field for the Democratic nomination. Not so for Republican, but there are few Republicans in Gary.
But it's crowded, yes, but that's a bit deceptive, because really there are, I would say, and I don't know if you fellows agree with me, but I would say there are two front runners for it, and they would be Karen Freeman Wilson and Reagan Hatcher.
And both of them have some political credentials. I
And
mean,
and name
you know,
recognition.
They have
Yeah.
name recognition, and they have some.
Karen Freeman Wilson is a former Indiana Attorney General. She's former city judge.
She's a Harvard Law School graduate.
Right, knows Obama.
Has
you know,
a
he's
lot
a friend.
Has a lot of credentials. Because knowing Obama might or might not be
True.
a good thing.
Although this
But-
is
A good thing in Gary.
a good thing in
A good
Gary.
thing, but,
Yeah.
but it all depends on whether Obama can do something for you or not, or wants
Yeah.
to do something for you or not. So, I mean, it's great to have friends, but if they can't come through for you, then.
And Reagan Hatcher.
And Reagan Hatcher, her father, Richard Hatcher, mayor of Gary from 1967 to, what was it, 19... I want to say 83, maybe? No, it's got to be...
87?
It's got to be longer than that. 87.
I think it was 87. I think it was 20
87.
years.
Yeah, because I covered Tom Barnes when Tom Barnes beat him, and I wasn't at the paper in '83. So, yeah. So he was a long-time mayor. I was talking to the party chairman, Tom McDermott, this morning, mayor of Hammond, and he said, because he had a similar situation. His father was mayor of Hammond. He's mayor of Hammond, and he spoke to the having that name recognition. And he said it's a plus and a minus. He said you inherit your father's enemies, you inherit your father's friends, and sometimes they switch sides, and your father's enemies become your friends, and vice versa.
Well, Rudy Clay took over as Gary Mayor in 2006 when then Mayor Scott King resigned to go back into private law practice. He was elected in 2007. But prior to being mayor, he's had a long political career, some very interesting things. In the mid-'80s, he survived an assassination attempt. In 1973,
Well, he got shot in the
Right,
butt. So,
right.
I mean, I'm not.
not really a laughing matter. But
No, but I'm not sure it was. I
hard to
covered
know
that,
why we are.
and I'm not sure that was an assassination attempt. I think it was more of a warning because somebody just stepped out of the bushes behind his house on 10th. It was when he was living on 10th Avenue, and said, "Are you Clay?" And he said yes, and they shot him with shotgun pellets.
Yeah.
And they could have really done some harm to him if they'd wished. So
Yeah, and-
I think he was. I asked him one time about what happened on that case. I said, "Did they ever catch anybody?" And he just kind of like smiled and said, "No, it's been taken care of." And I was kind of wondering what that meant, but.
But anyway, former Lake County Commissioner, former state senator. We were digging up in the background. I didn't know this until today, but back in 1973, there was a riot at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City. Then Governor Otis Bowen called on him to help negotiate, and he helped basically talk with the rioters and quell the situation.
Well, let's face it, Rudy Clay, has been active in the civil rights movement. There were, just as Bob Pastrick had pictures of himself with John F. Kennedy in his office, Rudy Clay had pictures of himself with Martin Luther King in his office. He has been right at the forefront of a lot of interesting political things in this last half century.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, among his accomplishments, he was the first African American party chairman, Democratic Party chairman
In
for
Lake County, yes.
yes.
Lake County, yes. And because he was defeated by Tom McDermott, the mayor of Hammond, and again talking to McDermott this morning, there was apparently no acrimony between the two men. McDermott said that they had, in fact, gone out to breakfast as recently as 2 weeks ago. So he just, he just said that's the way politics is. He said he has great respect for Rudy Clay and will continue to have great respect for him.
One of the interesting things I think about Rudy is that he's really, we inspired it, but he took up the challenge to call Senator by and then started the process moving to start knocking down houses. So he told us last week that
We're talking abandoned
right,
homes,
right,
yeah.
obviously.
Right.
Something
Now
like
people are watching TV.
when he took office, something like 1 in 8 buildings in the city were homes, especially houses, I should say, were abandoned.
And
flat out abandoned.
Right, and those kinds of properties lower property values. They became havens for crime, and obviously
Exactly.
getting rid of those
Right,
properties is key to revitalizing any area.
So since last August, they've knocked down at least 140 of them. And plan to knock down, I think he said the goal is to have another 800 by the end of the year. So, I mean, a pretty aggressive push to start, getting rid of those.
Yeah, and really, because what Robert was saying, it doesn't matter so much if you put something into place. What you're doing is you're taking away the opportunity for them to become havens for crime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that and who wants to live next to one or open a business
True.
next to one? So, you get rid of those, then you remove a deterrent to development.
Urban blight.
Exactly.
If you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, we'll hope for the best on the health front for Mayor
Absolutely.
Clay, and hope that he continues to be a leader, even if it's not in the position as mayor. We hope he continues to be a leader in the city and in the region. So.
And one of the things I think if we should close on is I've known Mayor Clay. I knew him back when he was a commissioner, I've never heard anyone link him with anything criminally. And you always, in my position, as a reporter, you always kind of get the dirt, and sometimes you get stuff that you can't use, and stuff that you can't tell. I'll just be quite frank with you. I never really heard anything untoward about Robert Rudy Clay. So that says something. I don't know. I don't know what he could have done for the city of Gary, but
He's been working on it.
I think I think he leaves. I think he leaves a positive legacy.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we'll close out this edition of the Roundtable. Please look to Saturday's edition of the Times for full coverage of this news, and
There will be columns.
and columns from a column from Mark Kiesling certainly as well. So for Mark and for Doug, Robert Blaszkiewicz, thanks for watching.